The heat pressed down like a hammer on the stone steps of the Capitol, turning the marble into a silent kiln beneath the shoes of those who had gathered there. Camera lenses shimmered in the sunlight like the eyes of some curious mechanical god, watching the players take their marks on history's stage. A low murmur of voices floated in the air, rising and falling with the rhythm of expectation. And at the heart of it all stood Gavin Newsom, tall and cinematic as ever, teeth gleaming, his voice amplified and confident, slicing through the August haze. "I'm telling you right now," he said, gesturing grandly to the banks of reporters and aides, "America's ready for bold leadership. The fight's just getting started. I'm going to win in 2028, and we're going to finish what we began. Climate, justice, equity. We will make it real." There was applause, scattered but respectful, and the news feeds immediately lit up Newsom eyes 2028 run *. Cameras panned in, capturing his smile, that high-gloss confidence he wore like cologne. For many, it was inspiring. For others, predictable. But for one man watching from a quiet corner of the Capitol's shaded stone, it was something else entirely. An invitation. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, grizzled, soft-spoken, razor-sharp, leaned slightly against the cool wall, arms folded, eyes squinting beneath his brows. He chewed slowly on a piece of spearmint gum, the kind he always carried to calm his nerves instead of smoking. A former Rhodes Scholar turned backwoods storyteller, Kennedy had learned long ago how to make folks laugh while he cut them down. But right now he wasn't smiling. He'd seen this before. Young bucks with big dreams and bigger speeches. But Newsom, he was more than ambition. He was the embodiment of what Kennedy distrusted. Polished progressivism wrapped in Hollywood glamour, a man who seemed more magazine cover than statesman. Kennedy had spent a lifetime believing in quieter values rooted in humility, perseverance, the dignity of labor. His father had worked the oil rigs in Plaquemines Parish. His mother taught Sunday school and never once missed a vote. He remembered the way his daddy's hands looked, cracked, calloused, and proud. That image lived inside him, fueling every fight, every filibuster, every speech. So when he heard Newsom say he'd be president, not could Kennedy felt something ancient stir in his bones. It wasn't jealousy, it was duty. Later that week, Kennedy called a press conference of his own. He didn't hold it on the Capitol steps or at a fancy hotel ballroom. He stood outside a rural hospital in Tangipahoa Parish, where nurses were protesting staff shortages and mothers waited 6 hours for a pediatrician. He didn't wear a custom suit, just slacks, a short-sleeved shirt, and a necktie crooked from the southern humidity. "Mr. Newsom says he'll be president," Kennedy began, his voice slow but pointed, like he's ordering dessert at a fancy restaurant. "But out here, we ain't living in a Netflix drama, we're hurting. Our kids are struggling. Our towns are drying up, and we need leadership grounded in real life, not Sprite and soundbites." The speech went viral. Not because it was flashy, but because it was true. As the days passed, Kennedy kept hammering the message, not just against Newsom, but for the people who felt forgotten. He traveled through Appalachia, the Rust Belt, rural Texas. He held listening sessions in shuttered diners, under church steeples, in high school gymnasiums with broken AC. And with each stop, his voice grew louder, but this wasn't just about politics, it was about belief. Kennedy believed America was tired not just from inflation and war, but from hollowness. Tired of leaders who said the right things and did nothing real. tired of slogans and selfies, and in Newsom he saw a dangerous illusion, someone who could win the crowd but lose the soul of the country. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom wasn't ignoring the backlash. In private, he seethed. He'd built California into a powerhouse, weathered wildfires and pandemics, balanced progressive ideals with pragmatic governance, and now some Southern senator with a drawl and homespun phrases was threatening to derail his momentum. He gathered his advisors, doubled down on media appearances, and began framing Kennedy as a performative relic of the past, a man whose folksy charm masked regressive ideals. "He talks like your grandpa," Newsom quipped on Colbert, "but votes like it's 1955. The stage was set. But beneath the surface, both men wrestled demons no camera could catch. Newsom, for all his confidence, carried a gnawing doubt that he wasn't believed that no matter how much he achieved, his past mistakes, affairs, pandemic missteps, whispers of elitism, would define him, that he'd always be the governor who dined at the French Laundry while others stood in unemployment lines. That fear, buried deep beneath the charisma, drove his relentless push forward. Kennedy, for his part, bore the scars of a life in the minority, of watching bills die, of seeing friends overdose in the very counties he represented, of knowing that the system rewarded flash over fight, and sometimes, in the dark quiet of his Senate office, he questioned if anything he did ever really mattered. Two men, two Americas, hurtling toward collision. Then came the debate. It was billed as a policy forum, technically non-partisan, but everyone knew what it was, a televised clash between two future titans. It aired live on every major network, framed as the future of America, a conversation asterisk. They shook hands on stage. Newsom, sleek in navy blue, grinned like a champion quarterback. Kennedy, in his gray suit and rumpled tie, offered a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The opening question was about health care. Newsom launched into stats, citing California's coverage rates, investments in mental health, plans for universal access. It was sharp, polished, impressive. Then Kennedy stepped up to the mic. Last week, he began, "I sat with a man in Minden, Louisiana, whose wife died of treatable breast cancer because the nearest specialist was 220 miles away. He cried right there in front of me. I didn't have stats, I had silence, and I promised him I'd say her name tonight. Elaine Porter. She was 46. The room went still." Throughout the debate, Kennedy didn't match Newsom in polish, but he didn't try. He told stories, real ones. And while Newsom delivered plans and ambition, Kennedy delivered something rarer. Connection. It wasn't flashy. It was devastating. By the final question, about leadership in a divided nation, Newsom gave a soaring vision about unity and hope. Then Kennedy took the mic. "I don't think America needs a messiah," he said. "We've had our fill of celebrity. What we need is someone who remembers what it's like to drive a 20-year-old truck and pray you don't blow a tire on the way to work. Someone who knows what it means to lose not just elections, but people, dignity, home, and still get back up the next day. That's how you lead, not from the cameras, but from the pain." The debate ended. The applause came slow, then steady, and though both men exited with their entourages, the narrative had shifted. In the green room afterward, away from the noise, Newsom sat alone, staring into a bottle of mineral water, his smile gone. For the first time in years he felt unsure. He had chased the presidency like a man chases a shadow, confident he would catch it, only to find his hand closing around air. Kennedy passed him quietly in the hallway. Their eyes met, no words, just a nod. Weeks later, Kennedy gave a speech at the funeral of a coal miner who'd lost his life in Kentucky. No cameras, no press, just a town in mourning and a senator who showed up. Afterward, a boy maybe 10 years old walked up to him, tugged his sleeve, and said, "Are you the guy who beat that California man?" Kennedy knelt to the boy's level, smiled gently, and said, "No, son, I'm just a man who tells the truth." In the end, the headlines would say, "John Kennedy destroys Gavin Newsom." But the real story wasn't about destruction. It was about contrast, about two visions of America, one draped in confidence, the other rooted in humility. And the lesson: that leadership isn't always the loudest voice or the prettiest face. Sometimes it's the weary man in the back of the room who carries the weight of forgotten people and chooses, again and again, to speak their names into the silence.